insecurity has actually risen in some parts with killings. I mean, multiple killings in several parts of the nation, especially in the northern region. I'm talking about Plateau State, Benue State. Recently, a local government chairman gave Fulani Herdsmen a 48-hour ultimatum to leave his community. So there's quite a lot to talk about when we talk about insecurity in Nigeria. The question again is it just about the Fulani herders? Or are we looking at a bigger picture here? Are we dealing with foreign mercenaries on Nigerian soil? These are some of the issues we will be looking at on this segment. Joining us on the conversation today is Dr. Lateef Misbah, a lecturer and of course a legal practitioner. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Lateef.
Yeah, good morning and thank you.
Thank you for joining us once again. We'd like to look at insecurity in Nigeria. I'm aware that, I'm sure that you are aware of the various happenings talking about insecurity, rising insecurity in various parts of Nigeria. Let's look at Benue State, for instance. Recently, the governor of Benue State, Governor Reverend Father Hyacinth Alia, spoke, and he actually said that we need to look at the root cause of insecurity in Benue State. Benue State, for instance, is known as the food basket of the nation. They engage in a lot of agricultural processes, but unfortunately, as a result of insecurity, they have not been able to live up to that expectation. And the governor is actually saying that the root cause is the 1991 ECOWAS protocol on cross-border grazing, talking about herders. But the question is this, Dr. Lateef, do you see this as just, an issue of Fulani herdsmen, or are we dealing with something bigger, something more powerful? Say foreign mercenaries, for instance. What's your opinion?
Well, generally speaking, the issue or the recent resurgence of insecurity, challenges in Nigeria is something that is truly concerning to, anyone who has followed, the situation of events in Nigeria. We had actually thought that this issue of insecurity, had calmed down for some time, then until this recent resurgence. So yes, it is true that several factors, have been, or several reasons have been given for this situation of insecurity in the country. People have talked about the farmer herders, crisis, land grabbing, foreign mercenaries, and trans-border, grazing of, animals, and all of those. Well, what we have heard from security experts really is that all of these challenges, put together, they are a sort of indictment on the government, or if you like, failure of government over time, not just since 2023 or 2022 till now, failure of Nigerian government over time to address some of these underlying challenges. For example, the grazing system, of cows in the country has over time become a major source of insecurity between farmers. People who own land, and then the herders, with the herders, claiming, rights, to move their cows around, and sometimes they run into people's farm, destroying their farms. These are economic resource of the people who own the farm. So basically, for me, I think essentially this is a failure on the part of government, and whatever the challenges may be or the underlying factor. I'm not a security expert. I need to clarify that. But from what we can glean from the public, I think this is something that has, challenged the government to come out with a more robust, I would say, policy, at combating these challenges, whatever they may be. If it is trans or cross-border, others, crisis, or what you call the ECOWAS protocol that allow, transnational or cross-border movement of cows and all of that. These are issues for government to address. And if it is lack of capacity on the part of our military personnel, perhaps we don't have enough personnel, and even policing and land issue dispute and all of this. For me, as a non-security expert, and I really want to emphasize that, I think this is an indictment on the part of government, failure of government to properly interrogate the issues and then come up, I would say, with a permanent solution. Even though, as I admitted earlier, this did not start in 2023, it has become a perennial problem. And I think, but then the buck stopped on the deck of those who are in government now to find a permanent solution to this. Talking about Plateau or Jos, what we have seen in recent time is simply, I would say, horrendous. Which is, again, an indictment on the part of the government, both the regional government, the subnational, and then the president. The national government, the federal government.
All right. All right, Dr. Lateef, just before you proceed, like you said, you're not a security expert. We've actually had security experts on this show talk about it. So we just wanted to have another angle to the, to the issue. We've had security experts. And of course, when we have security experts like that, sometimes they try to speak in favor of the security agencies, saying they are working. We are not saying they're not working at all. But again, sometimes it's quite glaring when security agencies are failing. So we just wanted to have another angle to the conversation. That's why we are bringing you in as a legal practitioner. Before I proceed with my next question, let's quickly look at this statement released here. The chairman of Agatu local government area of Benue State, James Melvin Eje, has issued a 48-hour ultimatum to Fulani Herdsmen to vacate all farmlands. The directive was issued by Eje during a stakeholders meeting held on Saturday, April 26, 2025, at the council secretariat in Obagaji. The meeting brought together traditional rulers, Fulani community leaders, youth representatives, and security officials to address growing concerns over herders' activities on farmlands as the planting season approaches. Obachi Solomon, the chief press secretary to the Agatu LGA chairman, quoted Eje as emphasizing that the need to protect farming activities in Agatu ahead of the critical planting season. He noted that agriculture is the backbone of the local economy and that farmers must be able to access their lands without fear or obstruction. Eje, through his statement, commended the relative peace currently enjoyed in the area, but stressed that ensuring uninterrupted farming activities was a top priority. That's a statement from the Agatu local government area chairman right there, giving Fulani herders 48 hours to leave. My question to you is this, Dr. Lateef. Historically, what has been the role of Fulani herdsmen in the Nigerian society? And how has that changed over time?
Okay, the Fulanis, as I understand it, is a very large, intercontinental, if you like, ethnic group. They cut across even beyond the Sahara. And so and you have some of them in Nigeria, some of them in Niger, some of them in other parts of the sub-Saharan and all of that. So given they are in Ghana too, as I understand. So, and even as I speak to you now, I could recall that growing up in my community in Osun State, and that is Ifon to be precise, we used to have what we call Fulani colony, if I can use that word in English. We call it Ahoro Fulani, that's the Yoruba word, which could literally mean Fulani colony. I remember growing up in that community, we lived together peacefully, although they live further from the city, They live really, in the bush. And we used to go to their colony, if you like, to collect milk and other things. So historically, the crisis that we see today, I've not really been part of, our life, if you ask me, and how the Fulani herding their cow or moving their cow around, suddenly became a security issue for me is more of a failure of the Nigerian state to, over time, I would say, develop a more sustainable economic way for these people to graze their cow. And this is not in any way justifying, I would say, the criminalities or banditries that we have seen in recent time, as part of the Fulani Herdsmen activities. But basically, I would say this issue is just an issue of, some criminal elements. And you have criminal elements in all tribes. You have them in Yoruba, in Hausa, Igbo, and everywhere. So, and I would not want to sit down here and say all Fulanis or all herders, are criminal. I remember, as I said earlier, those we grew up together in my own community, they marry into that community and our people marry from them. So we live peacefully together. So over time, I think, again, the problem is that the government over time has failed to, I would say, be proactive enough to develop, I would say, an inclusive economic way of engaging with businesses of these people. So over time, they also became, I would say, difficult to manage. They carry arms illegally, unconstitutionally. We now understand that Fulani others, they go about with AK-47, which is purely unconstitutional and even criminal. So how did it come about that? So some people have argued that, well, when, they realize that people are rustling their cows, they also have to defend themselves. So all of this, again, for me, comes back to the state. You see, people will naturally want to defend themselves, whether the farmers whose farm economic activities have been destroyed by Fulani others, or even the Fulanis who claim their cattle have been rustled. When government fail to step in, naturally people, would want to defend themselves. And this is where I think the directive you said the local government authority gave, if you view it from the cultural perspective, you might say a Fulani man who is a Nigerian citizen has a right to move freely within Nigeria. So nobody has a right to restrict their movement. But that is, I would say, that would be unfair to the community that have had to deal with this crisis over time. So then the community too, they have the right to protect themselves. So if government have failed over time to protect the community or the farmers, they also have the right to issue regulations, to issue directives. Now you have competing rights. The right of the Fulani man constitutionally, who is in Nigeria, not those who came from across the border, because they are truly Fulani who are Nigerian, of course, we all know that. Absolutely. So the right of a Nigerian Fulani man to move around anywhere in Nigeria as guaranteed by the 1999 Constitution, to even move around with his cow, of course, without destroying people's farm and all of that. And then the right of community to self-defense, the right of community to prevent harm against their economic activities and even their life and property. So you have competing rights. So the government then need to step in to balance these competing rights by protecting the community from the criminal activities of some elements within the Fulani herders, and also to prevent or protect the Fulani herder, from criminal activity of some community who may be attacking their cow or disrupting their businesses. So again, I want to take this back to the government. Again, failure of government over time to rise up to the responsibility of protecting life and property, to be proactive enough, to provide a sustainable way of managing or balancing this competing interests. So the community, I think, is right, even despite what I have said, to issue that directive, because at this rate, they need to rise up and prevent themselves, not unconstitutionally or not in an illegal way of carrying harm. Or if it is to say, okay, we want to restrict movement, We want to stop people from coming to our community within certain hours. The way a governor will issue a curfew, I think a community, has inherent powers, even under the Constitution of Nigeria, to do that. Self-defense is a first right. Self-preservation, self-defense, and people have the right to do that.
All right, Dr. Lateef, people have the right to defend themselves. We're going to a short break now. When we return, the program continues shortly. Please stay with us. It's our ultimatum asking Fulani herders to leave his community. And the question is, does this ultimatum carry any weight coming from a local government chairman? When we've seen governors, state governors, who have said they are helpless when it comes to this same issue, what really is the significance of this ultimatum? Dr. Lateef, thank you for staying with us.
Right.
Dr. Lateef, I really like to ask you, just as I was saying, what really is the weight of this ultimatum? Do you see it as carrying any weight coming from a local government chairman? That's number one. Number two, let's look at these attacks. These terror attacks on the citizens of Benue State. These violent actors, are they truly indigenous Fulani herders? Or do you think we might be dealing with something bigger, say foreign mercenaries at this time?
Well, on the first one, the truth is that the significance, if any at all, is symbolical. It is not exactly, I would say, a legal or enforceable, order or directive, because one, the local government does not even have the power to enforce any law. So that if a Fulani man decides to violate or flout that directive, what can a local government do? Nothing. And like you rightly said, where the governor fear to tread, what can a local government do? So it's just symbolical, and sometimes that could also, I would say, be something important to give the optics, that could actually dissuade any Fulani Herdsman, or to even alert the authority to the danger of not responding to some of these issues. Because in a sense, you could say the local government is taking the laws onto their hand. And like I said earlier, you now have competing interests. You have a community struggling to survive from criminal activities or some cow herders or Fulani herders, if you like. And then you also have the competing right of the Fulani to move freely about in Nigeria as they like. The Constitution guaranteed that. So this is a challenge again to the government to step in balancing this interest. But then I fear there is nothing the local government can do if the order is flouted or something. Now, coming back to the attack on Benue, I think the best that can be said for now is that what Governor Alia himself said, where he said that these people are foreigners. So the question then is that if they are foreigners and a governor of a state, is someone who sits in a position who should know this. So I want to really take the words of the governor for it, and I want to believe what he said, are accurate. So what then has the federal government done, or what are they doing to attend to this, I would say, a serious security breach? What is our custom doing? Our borders control.
All right, Dr. Lateef, like you said, the governor said that some of the people actually saw the faces of these attackers, and they are not indigenous of the place. They are not indigenous Fulani herders. That's according to some reports. And he also claimed that some of them are actually foreigners, perhaps mercenaries who are hired, to commit these terror attacks. Dr. Lateef, let's look at this from this angle. Let's look at the bigger picture here. There are some opinions in some quarters that these people are actually trying to grab land. That when they discover some minerals in some places, what they do next is try to destabilize that society by carrying out terror attacks just to displace the people so they can have access to those minerals. What's your reaction to that? Because if they are foreigners, if they are mercenaries, okay, who are employed to do this just to grab the land so they can have access to minerals, then what should the Nigerian government be doing about this? How porous are our borders in Nigeria, and what exactly should the federal government be doing about this allegation?
Okay, yeah, I've also read, a couple of reports here and there where people, actually say those things. And I tell you from what I've seen, and you can hardly fault, any of those claims. So the question then, like you rightly said, is what has the government done to, address all of these challenges, or what exactly are they doing? So basically for me, like I've said earlier, this is also, again, a challenge to the authority of government and a call to action, because as you can see, the basic underlying motive here is economy. I mean, people who grab land, they grab land, for their own economic purpose, and possibly they want to kill people who are over the land. I mean, literally genocide, if you ask me. And they do that, again, for an underlying economic purpose. They want to take the land, grab the economic resources within the land, and yet we say land or the protection of property and life, is in the hand of government. In fact, this is the essence of the government in the first place. I mean, when, as it were, humans proceeded from a state of nature to form a government, and they donated their powers to the government to protect their lives and property. So this, again, as I've said earlier, is a challenge to the authority of government. And it shows also that if truly these are mercenaries, who come from abroad, who cross our borders, how do they get through or close to the border? How do they get through the, security checks? I've said earlier that the Fulani ethnic group is a very large intercontinental ethnic group. So it's not impossible that the indigenous Fulani in Nigeria, they are, and I'm suggesting here, I do not have any fact to say this, okay, but I'm just logically thinking so. So we could easily infer that the Fulani or the indigenous Fulani in Nigeria are possibly amenable to accommodating their brothers across the borders who are not indigenous to Nigeria. So what is the Nigerian government doing to ensure that this infiltration of foreigners, okay, into our country, is curbed, particularly those who bear arms, those who carry arms and come here to grab land, to seize land, and commit a heinous crime, So basically, this for me, is something we still have to push back to the government. And unfortunately, this is one area I think this particular government, has not done sufficiently well. I mean, they really need to step up their action on security. And if it is to equip the army or the police, or to even engage more personnel, doing more recruitment, government should do that to combat this menace, because it is clearly, as we can see, getting out of hand. So basically, government need to rise up and wake up to their responsibility to protect life and property as guaranteed under the Constitution of Nigeria.
All right, Dr. Lateef, you said earlier that you would like to stand with the statement of the governor of Benue State, since he's right there and he knows what he's talking about. Now, legally speaking, as a legal practitioner, the governor has blamed the 1999 ECOWAS cross-border grazing protocol as the root cause, of all these terror attacks on a state. What can Nigeria do in that regard? Legally speaking, what can Nigeria do? Can't we just pull out of that cross-border grazing protocol, or what other legal options do we have as a nation just to put an end to these unnecessary killings going on in Benue State and other parts of the country?
Well, we live in an age where no nation can isolate itself. And this is the essence of what we call globalization. So it is not possible for Nigeria to live, without our neighbors. So, and this is the essence of, bilateral or even sometimes multilateral agreement that nations reach. So Nigeria is a very strong force, in the ECOWAS sub-region, and even generally in Africa and beyond. So the solution will not be, in my opinion, to pull out of this regional or sub-regional arrangements, to bolster economy. And economic resources, and even free migration of our people. I mean, we live in an age where we are talking about, free custom control across the African region, where people can move freely between Ghana and Nigeria and other countries. So if that is the way forward, as we have all agreed, then no nation can really recede, to its own cocoon and trying to isolate itself. So we need this bilateral agreement. We need this multilateral agreement. The question then is, in embracing or subscribing to this agreement, how do we situate them within the context of our own national interest? And this is where I think the federal government needs to do more. Under the Nigerian Constitution, the subnational, the state, do not have power to enter into any international agreement. It is something, that is reserved for the federal government under Section 12 of the 1999 Constitution. So this again takes the responsibility back to Nigeria, the federal government. When they enter into this, whether it is ECOWAS treaty or whatever agreement that allows free, trans-border movement of Africans, okay, how do they situate those agreements within the context of our own national security? Because even as country enters into agreement, national security is always, a guiding factor for whatever agreement a country enters into. So I think the government need to just revise some of these agreements and see how we balance integrating with other Africans, with protecting ourselves as a country and securing our people against foreign invaders. So again, I do not think backing out of the agreements, or isolating ourselves, will be the way forward. We just need to do better, in protecting our citizens, so that even if the borders are, less, I would say, if the borders are open and people can move freely in Africa, as we all desire going forward, and now that we even have what we call the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. So all of these protocols, they are aimed at galvanizing economic activities within the African sub-regions, okay? So we cannot, in one hand, be trying to build an African society where there is free movement of trade and persons, and on the one hand, trying to restrict other Africans. So again, the government will need to find a balance and make sure that all of these agreements, they do not in any way affect, the national security of Nigeria, which is the utmost, the heart of any government. So I think the way forward is to see how we balance, these competing interests, our national interest, and then the African-wide interest to integrate people, economy, and all of that.
All right, Dr. Lateef, we quite understand that bilateral and multilateral relationships are quite important. We cannot isolate ourselves as a nation. Well said. However, Dr. Lateef, I'd like to ask you this, and I'd like you to be objective, as objective as possible, because I've had interactions with security experts, and each time I ask them how they rate Nigerian security forces, their response to all these, terror attacks going on in different parts of Nigeria. Sometimes they try to be conservative in their responses. They say, oh, our security agencies are working, the military is working, the intelligence agencies are working. But in your own opinion, Dr. Lateef, how would you rate the response of security agencies in Nigeria to terror attacks?
Okay, basically, I think we have to give it to our security agencies in Nigeria. They are doing their best, even though the best is not enough. And I can tell you, with us, sense of responsibility, I've had, opportunity of, I'm talking about police now. I've had opportunity of, observing police or policing system in America, in Canada, in UK, in India. And I can tell you that for policing especially, we have, the best type of, policing system anybody can, wish for in the world. Even in the country where they have the best of ICT facilities, their society are still not crime-free, let alone a society that is developing as ours. So, that is for policing. But for the army, where their responses, you see, If you don't have something, you don't have it. I mean, we've said it over time that one, we don't have enough personnel, whether for police or for army. I mean, for a population of over 200 million people, I can't remember the number of, the soldiers or the personnel we have in our army again now, or even in the police. But I know that the experts have told us repeatedly that we don't have enough. In fact, we don't have anything close to enough. So basically, for the population that has continued to grow, you cannot use the same policing or army force that was conceived in the 60s. Okay, so I think where government needs to do more is to, of course, this is also about economy again. I mean, you talk about the fiscal responsibility for that. They need to get more people into the army. They need to get more people into our policing so that we can have enough personnel to man our borders, to protect and secure our people. But overall, coming to your specific question, I think despite all that I have said, we still need to commend the personnel that we have for the little they are doing. Their best may not be enough, but then I think they have done commendable things, and we should give them the flowers, and I think they have earned that.
All right, Dr. Lateef, we must go now because of time, but on a lighter note, Dr. Lateef, a senator in Nigeria who has been suspended, Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, has released a satirical letter, a satirical apology to the Senate president. What's your opinion to that? And in that letter, she said that, unfortunately, that the seat in the Senate should be earned through elections and not erections. I read out that letter just at the beginning of the program. What's your opinion to that kind of satirical response from a senator?
I've read it, and it is, like you said, a satire, and satire is, meant to evoke, I would say, maybe laughter and sometimes irony and all of that. But if you want me to speak beyond that, this particular senator, with due respect, I don't think has done well in really projecting herself, our constituents, and even the country. I mean, here is a senator who alleged sexual harassment, and up till now, despite all the noises we have seen all over the world. You see, I'm a husband, a father of beautiful daughters, and a son of my mother. I recognize the significance and the danger of a woman being harassed at all, not to even talk of sexual harassment. But when people come forward to make these sort of allegations, you expect them to put forward, some credible evidence. We have not seen any. So I'm not a fan of this senator, and I'm not sorry to say so. And when I saw that satire, I just laughed and felt, well, maybe Nigerians need the comic relief. Maybe Nigerians need the comic relief, and I think it is good.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you once again, Dr. Misbah Lateef, for joining us on the program today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, we've been talking to Dr. Misbah Lateef, a legal practitioner and, of course, a public affairs analyst. That'll be all we can take on the segment this morning on Morning Spring on Western Spring Television. Don't forget, you can check out this conversation on our YouTube channel, Western Spring Television, and other social media handles. And again, as Nigerians, don't forget, like Natasha said, electoral positions, seats in the Senate and other offices should be earned through elections and not erections. Thank you so much once again for staying with us. Emeka Daniel is my name. Let's do this again tomorrow as we bring you a fresh edition of Morning Spring on Western Spring Television. Special thanks to the production team. Good morning and have a wonderful day.